One of the instructions that I've really disliked over the years is the idea of rotating forwards on a forehand or on a serve and then stopping the body so that the arm can kind of whip through or snap through. And in this video, I'd like to unpack why. Over the weekend, I was watching some YouTube instruction videos and I came across this idea again. And I want to tell you why I'm not a big fan of it. First, let's take a look at some professional players and find out, like, is this actually happening? Is Roger's body stopping its rotation and then his arm continuing on through contact? And in full transparency, I think Roger's a very good example of this happening very frequently. If you track the writing on his shirt, it's turning forwards, turning forwards, turning forwards, and then just before contact, you see that his arm kind of snaps through, and during this phase right here, there's not really much happening with the rotation of his body. And then after his arm and his hand kind of starts coming around his body, that's when his body continues to turn, and eventually he does finish with his chest facing all the way to the left. But do you see what I'm talking about here? So to be honest, like initially, when I first heard this idea years ago, I was like, I don't think that even really happens. But I want to be like honest here, like intellectually honest. I do see it happening sometimes with some players. Now let's look at another example here. Here's Alcaraz. Does he have something similar going on? Does his body stop around the point of contact, or does it continue going through the point of contact? Is there like a brief instant where maybe his body kind of decelerates and slows down? I think there might be, but it's not nearly as clear to me as Roger, and it looks much more continuous that his body continues to rotate through. I think there probably is a slight slowdown. I think it might be a little later. I think for Carlos, it's probably more in this position, a little bit after contact on this particular shot, and his arm kind of moves for a couple frames without his body, and then his body keeps turning. I don't think it's nearly as obvious as Rogers. Let's look at a couple more. Here's Novak. I'll play it smoothly first. Is there a stop of his body? Possibly a little bit. I don't know. This one looks much more continuous to me as well. Right around the point of contact, body's still turning, body's still turning. Is there a couple frames here? Maybe. It looks like his core, his torso keeps moving pretty smoothly. If there is like a stop here, it's very subtle. Let's just look at one more. Okay, here's Yannick Sinner. I'll play it smoothly first. Is there a stop? Like, is his arm going without his body right around the point of contact? Maybe, like again, like maybe briefly, but it's not a long pause, right? If he is pausing, here's the point of contact. Is his body stopping, or does it keep its rotation? I think it slows down. And then his arm goes through for a couple frames, and then his body continues to turn. So I want to, like, just out of the gate, I want to be, again, like really intellectually honest. I believe that this is a real thing that elite players really do, but who are the players who mostly watch these types of videos? In my experience, and I've done a lot of surveys. Listen, I've been doing this well over a decade. I've done a lot of surveys. I know exactly who's watching these videos. It basically follows the bell curve of competitive adult like tennis players. Most of these people watching these videos, mine and everybody else's included, are around 3.5. That's the most common level in tennis. And then there's less 4.0 players, and there's less than that 4.5 players, and there's way less than that 5.0 players, because 5.0 players are just like a couple percentage points of all of tennis players. And so this is what, in like reality, this is what we're actually seeing when we watch like everyday tennis players. Here's a strong 3.5, maybe he was even a 4.0 player, but 3.5 for sure, like playing a long time. Big turn initially, but at the point of contact, like, would it make any sense to tell this player to stop and let his arm snap through? No, of course not, because his body's not even turning forwards in the first place. Like, you can't tell somebody to stop something that they're not even turning in the first place. And this isn't even like a super egregious example. Like, I see this kind of example constantly. Like he is, like at least he is doing some turning. Like there is some rotation here of the body. It's not a lot, but you can see like some effort. But let's go back to the pro players again. All of them, without exception, all of them were in a forward-facing contact at the point of contact. And so there's a lot of rotation here that you could slow down to let the arm like whip through or snap through. There is momentum, there is energy rotationally coming around so that you could allow that kind of function to happen. All of these players, like without exception, every high-level player, and by high level I'm going to go ahead and say like 5-0 and above, all are in a forward-facing contact. All are in a forward-facing position at the point of contact. And so they have rotational energy that they could stop and let their arm go through. But normal everyday players don't have that. So why are we telling them that this is like a critical thing? And I think that's the nuance here that's really important, is if you're going to make a lesson or you're going to teach a lesson in person and you're going to tell somebody that it's a hallmark element or factor in a high-level swing that these players are decelerating their body to let their arm like whip through. That's only helpful if the body is turning in the first place. And if you're a 3-5 player or you're a 4-0 player, you have fundamental flaws in the way you use your body. You have fundamental flaws in your kinetic chain. That's why you're a 3-5 player. That's why you're a 4-0 player. I made a video about myself about a year ago where I pointed out all of my fundamental flaws. As a computer-rated 4-5 player with a dramatic winning percentage at 4-5, I've got a lot of fundamental flaws in my game. So before you publish a video saying, oh, you better like put the brakes on your body and like let your arm like swing through and snap through, you better know who you're talking to. Because if you're not talking to somebody who has exceptional use of the kinetic chain in the first place, you're asking somebody to slow down what they haven't even put in motion yet. And again, like this isn't even like an extreme situation. I've seen lots of examples over the years that look like this player, where at the point of contact, there isn't any forward rotation, like at all. Only the arm is hitting the ball. I've seen this lots of times over the years. Like there's a much greater than 0% of tennis players that this is what they look like as they hit a forehand. And guess what? They're watching these videos. They're watching my videos. They're watching all of these instructional videos out there. So if you're going to say to this player, stop your body rotation, there's no body rotation to stop. And so I guess in a sense, like I guess you could kind of argue, well, it's not hurting anything because there's no rotation in the first place. But it is hurting something because all that time and attention and like analysis is being spent on something that's many, 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 many layers below and beneath the fundamentals. And the fundamentals are we got to use the big parts of our body effectively and efficiently and fully so that we can produce a lot of energy without a lot of effort. And if we don't start with that and make sure we just frickin' nail that, all these other like fancy advanced things can actually take people in a really terrible tangent, rabbit trail, waste a lot of time, hurt a lot of body parts because they haven't even come close to mastering the essentials first. So, is it a real thing that really happens? I believe it is. However, if you're gonna teach about it, you'd better be, in my opinion, you'd better be incredibly clear that, by the way, this is only useful if you've mastered your kinetic chain in the first place. So anyway, it's a little bit of a rant, a little bit of inside baseball. Hopefully this is a little bit clarifying. Next time you hear that suggested that you want to like stop your body, well, do you even turn your body? Do you even turn your body at all? Much less fully, like the way you're supposed to. Super important details that you should be aware of. And if you don't know for sure, like if you haven't watched your own forehand in this kind of detail, you better do it. Otherwise, how are you supposed to even know? Which is the lesson that's going to be helpful? You just don't. You're just guessing. And if you're just guessing, excuse me, you're probably going to default to the thing that's like most interesting or intriguing or like sexy. Not the lesson on the fundamentals. You're probably going to be more drawn towards the more interesting, explosive, like intriguing high level, like, oh, this sounds like a really cool trick, you know, I better like try this, and that's why my forehand's not going as fast as I want it to. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but it's probably way more basic than that. All right, that's all for today. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.